50 years now. Who'd have thought that a little science fiction drama series that the producers thought would last a month or so is now on its 50th anniversary. 11 people have played the Doctor, and there have been many companions over the years. But why is it so popular? Why has it got such a fandom? Speaking as a Doctor Who fan, I can answer that question. I have collected all of the merchandise, well, most of it that is. As you can see, all my action figures are here, and my extravagant DVD collection. From William Hartnell all the way down to Matt Smith. But there's one question that still remains unanswered. Who is Doctor Who? For 50 years now he's been an enigma, a ghost, a giant question mark which has been rattling our heads for ages. Who is this man that just appeared out of nowhere and can travel through time and space in the 1950s police box? We're about to find out. Welcome to 50 Years in the TARDIS. Doctor Who video. This is my 50th anniversary blog, to which I'll be talking about the last 50 years of Doctor Who, my personal opinions on the programme and how the programme has come and go from where it was into 1963 to where it is now in 2013, celebrating 50 years. Now obviously we've got a feature-length special coming up later today, the Day of the Doctor. So the pressure's on Stephen Moffat to get it right, I guess, because I imagine from the trailers and from all the publicity stuff, some people are going to like it, some people are going to love it, and some people are going to hate it. But you know, we'll see. We'll see when we watch the episode. Before I begin this review, I'd just like to cut and say we are celebrating 50 years. But let's take a minute or two to commemorate the fantastic actors and producers and all those other people who will not be here to celebrate 50 years with us. Anyway, just going to make a quick cut, and here's a commemoration to all those fantastic people.
Me like no other lover. Something in the way he moves me. I don't wanna leave now. You know I believe.
They're all gone, but never forgotten. So, starting off with this video. Well, I'm going to make a quick summary of what I think of Doctor Who and how I first came to watch the programme. I first came to watch the programme when I was about 8 or 9, maybe 9, and it was before the 2005 series had already started. And my dad had these old videos of Doctor Who stories from the 70s and 80s. There weren't an awful lot, but there were a couple of videos in which I used to watch with my sister continuously. Like we'd watch these videos in the morning before we went to school. We'd watch them on a Sunday night. We'd watch these videos all the time. And that's how I came to be a fan of the programme, because even though my dad watched it in and out, he did sort of collect videos. He did sort of collect the videos he could. And I think these were stories such as I don't know, maybe the Green Death, Pyramids of Mars, Day of the Daleks. What else? What other stories were there? Castrovalva, and Kinder. I think Kinder. I'm not. But definitely those 5. There is one more, but I can't really remember. I can't remember the story, which I'm terribly sorry about. But there was another one. Anyway, we'd watch these videos. We'd watch these videos in and out and really enjoy them. And then, of course, when the series came back, we didn't know it came back until 3 weeks in, so we missed 3 episodes and we had to catch up when the DVDs came out. But we watched Series 1 when we could, when it was broadcast on telly, and we liked the new setup. We liked Eccleston, and everything was good standing, considering that the series had been cancelled since 1989. It came back in 1996. And we've had a void gaping year from then all the way to 2005. Yeah, there is some skeptical situations as to what was going on with Doctor Who at the time. As we said, we liked Eccleston, and we became true fans when Tennant came along, because I think it was David Tennant who was around during the time when I was growing up and one time I was watching it. And that's how we came to, come and love the programme. I mean, of course, I've developed my knowledge of Doctor Who over the years since it's gone on, and as you can see, I've got a whole display of merchandise, like the Toys Wise, DVDs, Doctor Who books, Doctor Who audios, Doctor Who magazines, loads of stuff. Some people say I know too much about Doctor Who, but that's what a fan is. And of course I can commemorate my own ideas for the programme by doing my own action figure adventures on YouTube, which I'm sure you've all seen and enjoyed, and I've got more of those coming up. So don't fret, there will be more Doctor Who on the way next year. So, what do I say about Doctor Who? Well, let's talk about the Doctors first. Let's talk about my interpretation of the Doctors. Well, let's start off with William Hartnell. Now, William Hartnell is obviously meant to be is going into a new limelight, a new character which has never been done before since, and he is approaching a new role in it's something he's usually played before, because he's usually played the strapping army sergeant guy, and the quick-tempered sort of character. And his interpretation of his Doctor is sort of he's meant to be interpreted as sort of a kindly grandfather. And I think it was Verity Lambert that said it was H.G. Wells and Father Christmas and someone else all mixed in one, and that was the Doctor. And I think considering he was 55, quite old, and like the gimmickal frigid, kindly grandfather, it made sense that the person who was travelling with him was his granddaughter Susan. And of course you got Ian and Barbara, who, thanks to them, we wouldn't have an adventure, because it's their curiosity that gets us into the TARDIS, gets us fascinated with the whole idea, and of course, gets us zooming off into time and space, and we follow, and for the first couple of episodes he's very mysterious and very unlikable and very grouchy, Hartnell's character, and we still don't know, and we don't really have much confidence in him as a character. I mean, our main confidence is in Ian and Barbara, who drive the story, who drive the series forward, and you follow the companions, and Hartnell makes you respect him. And I think what's so good about Hartnell is Hartnell can walk into a situation and present himself, and everyone will take him seriously. A lot of people say that William Hartnell is the grouchy Doctor. He's the grumpy old git, and he's not really he doesn't really have comic moments. Well, I tend to disagree with that. When Susan leads and Vicky comes along, she kind of gets Hartnell out of his grumpy old git mode, and kind of makes him feel a bit more chuffy about himself, and he's starting to make jokes. He's trying to be very silly. Doctor Who's going into a more comical side, light humour sort of era, and that's when the passover from Verity Lambert to John Wiles and Donald Tosh, and then after that little era you get Innes Lloyd comes along, and by that time Hartnell's health is deteriorating, and the pressure's on to replace Bill and write him out and replace him with someone else. Now, obviously, the word regeneration didn't come into it in the 10th Planet, but when it happened, it was a fantastic idea. It was new, it was fresh, it was bold, it was exciting, it was extravagant. It did have the shock factor, and it's a great way of just sort of taking Hartnell out and replacing him with someone else. And it was just a little idea that the producers had the time to keep the show going. So Hartnell buggers off, and we go into Patrick Troughton. I think Patrick Troughton, who is the second Doctor, very much defines more who the character is today, more than William Hartnell does in a sense, because you've still got Matt Smith, doing gimmicky little things, saying, "Oh, I have a Christmas list. I wear a fez. Fezzes are cool. Bow ties are cool." He's very childlike and very giddy, and of course Troughton is very and of course Troughton can be a bit like a total child. He's a bit melodramatic. He's like the kid being funny at the back of the class, and then subversive, and then twice as clever. And one of the down points, though, to Troughton's character is he can walk into a situation and no one will take him seriously. However, his presence and his perseverance to the performance is quite good. He's nothing more than electrifying to watch. He's funny, gimmickal, bold. He's scary when he needs to be. He can do serious as well as funny. And I absolutely adore Patrick Troughton's Doctor. You can't go wrong with his performance. He's a top class actor. Okay, then at the end of the War Games, Troughton fades away from us, and it's the end of Black and White Doctor Who. And of course we learn about more of the Doctor's origins, and who he is, where he comes from, and that also changes the show. I think the contrast between Hartnell and Troughton is Hartnell made you respect him and you followed the companions, but with Troughton you gained confidence in his character, and it was the first time you actually followed the Doctor. So very, very good. So it's a solid block of the Hartnell and Troughton era, which are really, solid and really set up the boundaries of the way the show can go. And of course, an experiment is taken into place, a bold and daring experiment, which, in my opinion, pulls off. And but of course, it does mean it could only work the once. When Pertwee comes along, it's all changed. Doctor Who's in colour. There's a new title sequence. New Doctor, new title sequence, it's in colour. The TARDIS is immobile, so all the outer space stuff's gone, it's set on Earth. new characters are coming in, new storylines are coming in, new producers are coming in. You know, it's just so new and bold and fresh. And you come to Doctor Who in 1970, and it feels like a new series. So, going to talk about Jon Pertwee now, Doctor number 3, my personal favourite out of all the Doctors so far. What's so great about Pertwee? Well, there are so many things I could go on about Jon Pertwee, but unfortunately, if I was to blabber on about Jon Pertwee, I'd never get through all the other Doctors, and I couldn't get through all the other things I want to talk about in this video. But I'll just make a brief summary of why I like him so much. He has his mannerisms and his presence and his voice as well. He's very straight, and he's very serious in the role, but with a twinkle in his eye. And his perseverance of care towards members of the cast. He's such a lovely person, because he would stop halfway through if something was going wrong and say, "Sorry, can we go again for the actors?" And he's quite mischievous on set. I love hearing stories about him in documentaries and thinking how cheeky he was backstage. And he was the action man. He was the physical doctor. He was the action man. He's pacey. He's many things. I can't really. It's difficult to describe. It's a difficult question to answer, really. Why I like Jon Pertwee so much? He just is perfect. His performance is near perfect, and he just has this essence about him that makes me want to really like him. I guess, and I think that's all I can really say on the matter. Sorry if that's not what you were expecting, and you want me to go in the basics of I like him for reasons X, Y, and Z, but I can't give a straightforward answer. My brain fries, because my brain has a meltdown because it can't compute what you're asking me to answer. But he is my favourite, let's just say that. Then of course we have the glorious Tom Baker, who, not gonna lie, is fantastic. I do love Tom's Doctor, and he's such an icon to the programme. And he has become Doctor Who. And I think Tom didn't act Doctor Who. Tom was Doctor Who, and he just created a legacy and a tremendous amount of fan base. And he started off really, really strong, because obviously new producers coming in, Philip Hinchcliffe and Robert Holmes in particular, and those two guys really raised the bar, and they really improved upon the ratings and the views. And then of course you got into the Graham Williams era and John Nathan Turner era after that. And Tom's character's never really never fails to surprise me. Every time I watch him, he's a tumbling ball of energy which seems to be firing off in all directions, and he's uncontrollable. His attitude towards things is, he really grasps on the fact that he is an alien, and the bizarreness towards his character. And of course he could come into very solemn and serious moments, and then of course he could have a very grinny, running around, laughing moments as well. The big problem, however, with Tom Baker is he had so many little errors within his own era that you can't seem to contrast. It's all in sections. This happened, and then it was this bit, and then it was this bit, and this is a story in this area, and all this other stuff. So it very much orders itself. It factorizes itself in each different sections, and that sort of sums up the whole of the era, rather than summing up the whole era as a whole. It's just in segments and bits, like the Keats time in a sense. Really, you put all the segments together in order to create one single thing. So that is a little bit. So that's the only criticism and negative about Tom Baker. But fantastic energy, and he's certainly one of my favourite Doctors. Now then, the most tricky Doctor to talk about, Peter Davison. What do I say about Peter Davison? Well, the Fifth Doctor's an interesting one because many people who I've come up and asked about Peter Davison, they said, oh yeah, he's Peter Davison. He's the passive Doctor. He's the quiet Doctor. He's the one that sits on the side, sits on the wall, and sort of thinks before he acts. And he's certainly one of the lighter people who play the part. At 29, it was a big risk casting Davison as the Doctor, but in my opinion, Peter Davison, he's very cool and calm when he approaches crisis. He tends to be like your big brother, which you grow a confidence in and have a great likeness for. And suddenly he's on the telly battling Daleks and Cybermen and all those other things. And he is very farcical. Davison as a whole is very calm and relaxed, and thinks before he acts, and is very is the thinker. Now, Colin Baker. What's to say about Colin Baker that hasn't been said about many other people? I really like Colin Baker's Doctor. I think the problem with Colin Baker is nothing to do with him. It's not his fault. Is the fact that his era was so badly handled. You don't really cast someone as the Doctor because they made people laugh at a dinner party. You cast the Doctor on the basis of the fact that you have confidence in the actor or the person you're casting to deliver a fantastic performance and make people believe in the Doctor, and sort of drive the series forward. And I'm not saying that Colin Baker didn't do that. He just presented his Doctor in his own way, and sadly it didn't quite work. I could see what they were trying to do. They were trying to avert back to the place. They were trying to avert back to the early Hartnell days and make the Doctor sort of an unlikable character again, and make him a bit shifty. And they wanted to make him a character which had poor taste, which of course leads into the famous and iconic coat, which only works for Colin. I love the coat, it's just a lot of people don't. So, Colin, what do I say about Colin Baker? He's entertaining to watch, he's very entertaining. He'd come up with little quotes and sopmias, like there's a line in The Two Doctors which he says to Perry, "It is the province of knowledge to speak, and the privilege of wisdom to listen." So he'd say little things like that. And of course he would be very theatrical. He would raise his voice and raise his arms and drive his body forward. He brought charisma to the character, so that's a good point. And then of course we have the wacky Sylvester McCoy, who is my second favourite Doctor out of the 11. So McCoy, he's wacky, which can say the least. He starts off as a bit of a clown, which I like, and then of course he moulds into a rather dark and sinister kind of character. It's kind of like the aversion of the White Swan to the Black Swan, the graceful, elegant character, and sort of moulds and gets corrupted by evil, and really shows a darker side. And the darker side takes over, and that is very complacent and very obvious, because obviously you have all of season 24 when he's being a bit of a comic comedian, when he's doing all the wackiness and all the other things, and then of course you go into Remembrance of the Daleks, and his character is completely different character, because he's very he's shifty. He gets Ace to do his dirty work. He's blowing up Daleks. He's doing all these other things as well. And then of course in season 26, his character is a lot darker, and he's moulded into quite a different sort of character than he was to start off with. He'd have plans. He'd have plans. He didn't have to let Ace know them. And it's a shame that the series got cancelled when it was at his highest peak, because I think had they had the opportunity to continue this, they would have really stretched the boundaries and really sort of gone to show how that could have turned out, and I think that would have been brilliant. And sadly, we never got to see it. Now then, Paul McGann only appeared in one television adventure. However, has gone on to create such a fandom in which he's become the freestyle Doctor in a sense, because he was the Doctor that the comic strip characters that opened the graphic novels and opened Big Finish, because basically you're given a Doctor on a plate. He's never going to be shown on television again. Really take him to town and really go for it. Now, I personally, I've only listened to a couple of Big Finish audios that Paul McGann has done, and I haven't read any of the graphic novels. So my knowledge of the Eighth Doctor is a bit hazy. But my opinion of the Eighth Doctor is not. I think the Eighth Doctor is the suave, decadent Oscar Wilde type-ish character. He's the charmer. He's the handsome one. He's quite a drifter. There isn't anything new. There isn't anything old to his character, because there are elements of Tom Baker and Peter Davison in him. But no, Paul McGann, he is very good. Eccleston, when my first thoughts on Eccleston was, wow, look at this guy, he's brilliant. And the reasons why he never did a second series baffled me. But going into the facts, I can totally understand the reasons why he didn't. But if you actually examine Eccleston's 13 episodes, and examine his performance, he really goes for it every single time. He tops his performance until the last moments, and it's just perfect. Eccleston's performance is near perfect, and of course the highlights. The only highlight I have of Eccleston is his last scene with Billy Piper in the TARDIS, and he's about to regenerate, and he's sort of saying, "Oh, before I go, I just want to tell you were fantastic, and you know what, so was I," and all that other things. I think the parting of the ways of regeneration and that scene is just terrific. And then of course we have Tennant, who's doing a rather, not impersonation of Tom Baker in a way, but he's sort of doing all the wackiness and the and 10 times more amount. And of course Tennant is the funky one. He gets the fangirls into it, and Tennant's all about the place. I'm quite sceptical about Tennant's Doctor, having looked at him and watched his performance back, because he's good to start off with in series 2 and 3, but in series 4 is when I really started to lose confidence in him, because it was just the same old thing. We were used to. I wasn't getting anything new from him. There was a lack of elegance to the performance, and yeah, things started to go downhill from there for Tennant. that doesn't mean to say I don't like David Tennant's Doctor. I do, and I know lots of people. I know lots of fans absolutely adore the 10th Doctor. I just feel, he was good to start off with, and then he just sort of, went downhill. And then of course we have Matt Smith, who of course has taken influence from the Troughton Doctor, and of course starts off very, very strong indeed. It's only in series 6 when he starts to hit a rough patch and a rocky road. But then series 6 is a terrible series 6 is a series I think is crap anyway. And my overall opinion of Matt Smith is he is the children's Doctor, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. He gains confidence in younger viewers, and he really sort of he makes it entertaining. He's very entertaining to watch, and he does little gimmicky things which he does make the character. He does make little gimmicks. He does make little gimmicks to make his character his own. And of course, he's had some very good stories over the years. There are stories like Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, and A Town Called Mercy, which I actually really enjoy. So they sum up the Doctors in each aspect of the way. Now 50 years, it's baffling that that series has now reached its 50 years of being on telly, and it's still going strong today. And we know the show can survive and go on to be a success, and it already has been a success. It's influenced lots of people like Russell T Davies and Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss to go on and make it and top the show up and bring it into the modern day. And it's also inspired fans like myself to make up our own episodes and make our own stories and put our little stamp on the show. I'd like to quote from Peter Capaldi actually, something he said about, it's not just the wonderful actors that have played the Doctor, it's all the people that have dressed up in rubber suits, all those wonderful producers and directors who have come onto the show, and all the people who have sat down to watch it. We all made Doctor Who, and we all are Doctor Who. And you know what? I strongly agree with him. I'm saying I say yes to that. I share that thought. I think Doctor Who has become an overall collective thing, and it's expanded my knowledge. And when I personally want to come on to be a director and a producer. I want to work in television and film, and Doctor Who has helped me a lot. I mean, if you just by watching all the documentaries and the classic stories and new series stories, and watching interviews and backstage documentaries about how they made the show. Yeah, it's really given me a lot of knowledge, and how things were worked back in the 70s and the 60s to how they are now. Yeah, it really has influenced me and to go on in how I work in the future. And I'm just forever grateful to this little program, who I never thought in a million years would make such an impact on me as it has. And I absolutely adore Doctor Who. It is my favourite program on television, and I'm lost for words of how much of appreciation I have to show for this. So that pretty much concludes the 50th year vlog, the 50th year video, our anniversary video. I hope those of you watching all enjoy the Day of the Doctor, hope to hear. I'll be in touch soon with new projects and upcoming videos on my channel. So thank you for watching this video. Enjoy the 50th, and I'll see you all next time. So cheers and take care, everyone.